my talk on insomnia and the heart chakra. And I'm really happy to have everyone here with me today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Holly Scalmanini. I'm a medical intuitive. I give intuitive readings around health, and I really love to look at the root causes of health. I like to look at behavioral patterns and emotions that manifest in our bodies physically. I'm also a licensed acupuncturist, and so Chinese medicine and that view is the view that I tend to look at the human body through. That's the lens that I tend to look at the human body through. So today we're going to talk about insomnia, and insomnia is a really big topic. It's very broad. I think that the statistics are something like 50 to 70 million Americans deal with insomnia. I think it's something like 4 million Americans are on prescription medication for insomnia. And there's been a slew of news articles and things recently talking about the link between health and insomnia, getting a good night's sleep, particularly with weight gain, also with mental and emotional health. And so it's really important to get a good night's sleep, but at the same time, it can be so elusive to try and find that place of sleeping, of restfulness. And so I want to talk about the heart chakra and the relationship to the heart chakra and sleep. I also want to talk about sleep from the Chinese medicine point of view and how Chinese medicine looks at insomnia and sleep and how they treat it. And then I also want to look at it from the medical intuitive point of view, what I see, some of the deep behavioral patterns that I see that are associated with sleeping and not sleeping. So before I begin, I just want to say that I deal with insomnia. It's something that I've dealt with for a number of years. So this is a talk not just from my own knowledge, but also from my own experience and from my own heart. And the other thing that I want to speak to is I know that there's a lot of healers. There's a lot of people who are healers in this talk today. And I've spoken with other healers, and particularly intuitive healers, people who do psychic work, intuitive work, who also deal with insomnia. And what I see in my mind's eye, in my own experience with giving intuitive readings, is not only does my sixth chakra get really expansive when I do a reading, but my heart also becomes very expansive. And I think that there's a relationship there between my work and my ability to sleep. And I've talked to some other psychic readers who also have issues with sleep. And so I would love to hear feedback on that. I'd love to hear if, other healers and psychics out there, that if you're dealing with sleep issues, if that's something that you feel is connected to the work that you do. And but I feel, for me, the way that I see it is that my heart has to become very expansive in order to do that work. And then it takes a lot for me to kind of get my heart grounded again. And so that's just one of the things of my own experience. So, okay. So let's begin. Let's start with the heart chakra. Just a quick overview of the heart chakra. So the heart chakra is also called the Anahata chakra. It's located in the chest. It rules the lungs, the heart, the rib cage, the shoulders, the upper back, the scapula. The color of it is green. Excuse me, although I've also been told that it's pink, which is my favorite color. And so this is the heart chakra. And I think that most of the people that I'm talking to today already know the heart chakra. They already know a lot about it. But one of the things that I want to point out with the heart chakra in relationship to insomnia is the heart chakra is in the middle of the chakras. So there's 7 chakras. So there's 3 chakras below the heart chakra and 3 chakras above. So the heart chakra is where we marry the upper chakras and the lower chakras. The heart chakra is where they meet. The heart chakra is essentially where we marry heaven and earth. And I think that this is a very interesting time that we live in. We have the luxury of marrying heaven and earth because we are no longer thinking about survival. It's October now. If we were living 200 years ago in October, we would be really thinking about, do I have enough wood? Do I have enough food? Do I have enough supplies to get me through the winter? And in this day and age, that's just not, that we're not thinking about that. So we have this luxury of being able to spend more time in those upper chakras. And so that creates this space and openness for us to begin working on ourselves on a deeper level. And it's the heart that manages all of that, which I think is interesting in the relationship to sleep. Do you guys all know the book Eat, Pray, Love? Do you guys know that book? I'm actually rereading it again. I know. And I just came across the part where she goes to meet Ketut, who's the guy from Bali. He's the medicine man from Bali. And he gives her the picture where she asks him the question, you know, how do I live both worlds? How do I live in this earthly realm, live this good life, but also live this spiritual existence? How do I do both? And he shows her the picture of the vision that came to him in the meditation. And the picture is a human being with 4 legs and 4 kind of big feet. And then in the head area, there's no head. It's actually ferns and plants and vegetation. And then in the heart area, there's this smiling face. And he says that in order to do this, you have to feel so grounded that it's like you have 4 feet on the ground. Instead of just 2, you have 4 feet on the ground. And so I think that relates to some of the issues that can contribute to insomnia, feeling grounded, feeling rooted in our lives and what we're doing and the way that we're moving forward. And so I just read that 2 nights ago. And so I wanted to include that because I think it's a great visual for what we're talking about. So now I want to switch into talking about insomnia from the traditional Chinese medicine point of view. And so insomnia in Chinese medicine always has to do with the heart. Anytime someone presents with insomnia, we're always looking at the heart. And in Chinese medicine, insomnia can be caused by lots and lots of different things. And so, you know, if you go to your Western medicine doctor and you're not sleeping, it's generally just, okay, the diagnosis is insomnia, here, take this pill. But in Chinese medicine, there's just a lot of different patterns and things that can contribute to insomnia, but it generally all has to do with the heart. And so we're always looking at the heart and what's happening with the heart. And in Chinese medicine, each organ has a soul associated with its with the organ. And so in Chinese medicine, the soul of the heart is called the Shen. And the Shen is our consciousness. It's our ability to connect to a higher power. Our Shen is our big soul. And so when we can't sleep, our Shen is not able to rest. And so in Chinese medicine, we are looking to calm the Shen. We're looking to calm the heart. So some of the things in Chinese medicine that can contribute to insomnia are qi deficiency, blood deficiency in the heart, heat. So particularly as we go through the menopausal years, we're dealing with heat, and that heat can kind of invade the heart, and that can create restlessness in the heart. There can also be an imbalance in another organ that has an intimate relationship with the heart, and that can create a sense of restlessness in the heart. So from a Chinese medicine perspective, it's complex, and there can be lots of different things. It can be all of those things. It can be qi and blood deficiency with heat. It can be all of those things. And so acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine can be a really good way to work with the Shen to create a sense of calm and grounding. And one of my favorite stories with Chinese medicine, one of the ancient remedies, and I encourage you guys to try this. I think that this is a really great remedy that's kind of fun. So in China, and I think that goes beyond China. I think that this is an Asian tradition, but in China in particular, a ritual before you go to sleep at night is to soak your feet in warm water. And for them, this is as basic as brushing your teeth. Everybody does this. This is every night. This is a ritual. You do this. And the idea is that you're bringing the energy down. You're bringing the energy down into your feet. So there's a saying in Chinese medicine that a healthy person has a cool head and warm feet. And I don't know anybody who has a cool head and warm feet. I don't have a cool head and warm feet. My feet are always freezing and I'm always, ah! So soaking your feet in warm water before you go to bed at night is a great home remedy. And it's a great way to kind of bring the energy down. And one of my professors in acupuncture school told me a story. She grew up in China, but had lived here for such a long time that she stopped doing this ritual. And when her parents came to visit, they were just astonished that she was not soaking her feet. You know, this would be like if your child stopped brushing their teeth before bed, you think, oh my God, the repercussions of not brushing your teeth. It's the same kind of feeling that they had and so she began soaking her feet at night again. And so I encourage you all to try it. I think it can be a great thing to do with a little bit of essential oil, some lavender oil. I've recently gotten into doTERRA oils. And so this one is balanced, but putting a couple drops of essential oil. The other thing is try to do this without any other stimulation. Try to do it without watching TV or reading a book or talking to somebody. Give yourself that 10 or 20 minutes at the end of the day to really bring your energy down and in and feel a sense of groundedness. So that's a great way, practical way to begin working with the Chinese medicine view of things. So I think that covers the Chinese medicine piece. Does anybody have any questions? I guess this would be a place for questions if anybody has any questions around. Yes, Claire.
Yeah, so I love the idea of soaking my feet, but my feet are always hot. My feet are out under the blanket all night, and I keep the window cracked even in the dead of winter because my feet are hot, even if the rest of me is cold. So
I'm so glad that you asked this question. This is a great question. And what's happening for you as a woman is that this is still what in Chinese medicine we call yin deficient heat. And this has to do with menopausal symptoms. The bottom of the feet are ruled by the kidneys, and the kidneys are the organ that rules the yin. And when the yin becomes deficient, the yin is the feminine, the yin is the cooling, that's the blood, it's the yang is the heat, the activity, it's the processes in the body. And so when the yin becomes deficient and our kidney chi becomes deficient, it can't cool things off. You can think of it kind of like the thermostat. Your thermostat is not working great. And all of us go through this. And so what's happening is your thermostat can't cool you down. And so I'm not exactly sure what to tell you to do. I imagine that maybe lukewarm water, or maybe even something else that just helps you to feel grounded. Maybe just rubbing some essential oils on the bottom of your feet, something that's more cooling would feel better. But there's some really wonderful acupuncture and Chinese herbal treatments that can help to clear some of the heat out of the kidneys and get that thermostat so that it's working a little bit better. But I'm glad that you asked that question because I think that's a really common thing. I think it's very interesting, and this is completely off topic and we could keep talking forever, but I think it's very interesting. And, a lot of people have tried to understand, we here in the West, we tend to have really intense menopausal symptoms, and in the East, they don't. And I think that, that's it's another topic for another time. I think that it's very interesting, but in the East that they don't go through the menopausal symptoms as severely as we do. And I think it's a very interesting thing to think about and look at. So thanks for that question, Claire.
Yeah, thank you. Great answer.
Yay. All right. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to keep rolling here. So, so I want to look at insomnia now from the medical intuition place, from the place of looking at it symbolically and looking at it from the patterns, the behavioral patterns and the emotions that I see. And so, again, I just want to reiterate that insomnia, again, it can present in a lot of different ways. And this presentation that I'm talking about today is the most common presentation that I have seen in my practice as an acupuncturist. But like, for example, my husband deals with bouts of insomnia, and his presentation is completely different than mine. And so if what I'm saying isn't resonating with you, just know that there's a lot of different presentations. There's a lot of different ways that this can manifest. And so if this doesn't feel quite right to you, or if it's a little bit off, then that's probably true. And it's important to listen to that part of your body that's telling you that. But what I'm focusing on is the type of insomnia where people don't have any trouble falling asleep, but they generally wake between 1 and 4 a.m. There's generally a sense of either anxiousness, worry, exhaustion that goes along with the insomnia, with everyday presentation. And this is a really common presentation. So just quickly, I want to briefly just talk about the physical piece that's happening with that, physically what's happening. So going back to the kidneys, Claire, so our kidneys have an adrenal gland on the top of them. The adrenal gland is about the size of a walnut. Interestingly, it's actually orange in color, which correlates with the second chakra, which I think is really cool. It's orange in color. And the adrenal gland secretes a hormone called cortisol. I think most everybody knows this, so I'm just going to briefly go over this, but secretes a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol has its own natural rhythm to it. Cortisol peaks at 8 a.m., it dips a little bit at 10 a.m., peaks again at noon, and it kind of slowly drops off from there. And then from there, essentially through the day, it continues to go wane, and then through the night it's very quiet, and then in the early morning hours it begins to peak again. And so essentially what the cortisol does is it's intimately connected with our sleep, with our energy level, and our digestion. And when the cortisol level gets off, then all of those things tend to get off. And there are places, there's cortisol tests. You can get them on Amazon now. You can test to see your cortisol. There's generally 2 different cortisol patterns that contribute to this type of insomnia. One is that where your cortisol is just low, it's just kind of flatlined, you really deficient cortisol. The second is where your cortisol rhythm has gone off. And so essentially what's happening is that your cortisol is spiking at 2 or 3 a.m. and then dropping at 8 a.m. So you're wide awake at 2, you're ready to go, and then by the time the day actually starts, you want to go back to bed. So these are symptoms of adrenal fatigue. And I'm going to jostle my computer. I apologize. I have this book here that I really like, Adrenal Fatigue, the 21st Century Stress Syndrome by James Wilson. He also has a great website. I think this is a great resource for if this is what you're dealing with, if this is something that your presentation that's manifesting for you. I highly recommend that book. So adrenal fatigue is generally that this is our fight or flight response. This is the part of our autonomic nervous system that is in high gear all the time. And why is our nervous system in high gear all the time? Why is that happening? That's my question. I think it's a great question to ask ourselves. Why is this happening? Why am I in high gear all the time? So one of the behavioral patterns that I see with people who are dealing with this type of insomnia is, and I am one of these people, that we go, go, go. We are going, going, going from dawn till dusk. Go, 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 go. We push through things. We have a list of things to do that's a mile long, and we keep going, 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 going. And part of it is because it feels good to get all that done, right? We feel good. We're productive. We're moving, shaking, and that feels really good. But there's this go, go, go mentality. And so you have to ask yourself if that's balanced. Is there harmony happening here? Am I pushing myself too much? And the answer for me is yes, I am. I do that. And so what we need to ask ourselves with that is why? Where does that come from? So I had an astrologer tell me once that I have some aspect that I ask why. Everything I ask why. I ask why. I ask why. And so this is my cross to bear, but I also bring that into my work. So why? Why is this happening? Where does this come from? And so what I see is from a deeper perspective, and this is really getting into the deep behavioral patterns, but what I see is that most of us that are in that pattern, we have a deeper need for approval. We need approval. We need to know that, that we're okay. And even deeper than that, what I see is that there's generally somewhere in our lives where we didn't receive the approval that we needed, usually in childhood. Usually there's a childhood pattern where we didn't receive this level of approval that we needed. And so what we do is we push ourselves. We push, push, push. We go, go, go. Always looking for that sense of approval, that sense of acceptance within ourselves that essentially never really gets met. It never really gets attained. So we push ourselves further and it becomes a cycle. It becomes a merry-go-round. One of the things that I see in insomnia in night, that some of the thought patterns are generally, we're very hard on ourselves. So generally the thought patterns that tend to happen with this type of insomnia is we're either rehashing the past or looking at the past or looking at our previous day, previous month, year, what have you, life, and thinking, could I have done it better? How could I have done that differently? What could I have done better or different? Or, oh, I wish I would have done it that way. Or, oh, I never should have said that. We're kind of rehashing the past, sort of being hard on ourselves. Or we're feeling this weight on the future. We're looking at the future and thinking, I don't know how I'm ever going to deal with that situation. Oh my God, I have this coming up. Because we're putting all this pressure on ourselves, we're seeking that approval. So the future becomes very heavy. It becomes very daunting. And so we're kind of caught between this past that we don't feel good about and this future that feels very heavy. And this is what comes and sits on our chest at 2 a.m. And it's here. What in the world do we do with this, right? What in the world do we do with this? So
Holly, excuse me 1 second.
Yes.
Got about 6 minutes to complete the webinar so that we have 10 minutes left at the end, but I mean, 5 minutes at the end is probably fine too. So if you've got 10 more minutes,
thank you.
That's fine.
Thank you. Okay, I think I can do it.
That's fine.
So
you're hitting a chord though here, let me tell you.
Yeah, well, and I think that this is, this is so universal for us. And so how do we work with this? And there's a couple of things that I want to say in working with this. First of all, I really don't think it's a good idea to try and work with this at 2 a.m. Don't try and work with this at 2 a.m. Set time aside during your day. Work with it during the day. If you're feeling this at 2 a.m., acknowledge it. Create a sense of kindness and softness with ourselves. Breathe deeply into it. But if you try and work with it at 2 a.m., you're going to overthink yourself and spin yourself into a bad place. So that's my advice. Do other things. And I'm going to go through some things some advice that I have around that, but do some other things that are more calming, more soothing. Get yourself back to sleep. And then set aside time during the day to work with these deep patterns. So these deep patterns these are things that we work out and work with throughout our lifetimes. This is not something that happens overnight. It's not something that's going to be, resolved by the end of the year. And so I think taking the long view and really being really kind to ourselves, really soft with ourselves as we approach it, and realize that this is what our inner voice, this is what our soul is telling us that we need to work on. We can listen to the message and we can do our best to work with it and create a sense of acceptance around all of that, a sense of kindness and softness. I'm a really big fan of Pema Chodron. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. I have a bunch of her books here. So Pema Chodron is one of my favorite authors, and she's really the person who's taught me how to be kind to myself and how to be soft with myself and how to work with these deep patterns from a place of softness and kindness. And so I highly recommend some of her books, The Wisdom of No Escape. Oops, sorry. The Places That Scare You, Start Where You Are. I thought I picked up When Things Fall Apart. When Things Fall Apart is kind of one of her hallmark books. She has a lot of audio out there as well. And so I highly recommend her teachings as a way to work with creating a sense of friendship with ourselves and friendship with this deeper part of ourselves. I also think that it's healthy to look at where this pattern comes from, where this deep need for approval comes from. Who is it that we're really wanting that approval from? And getting clear on where that comes from. And I think that that also is a deep and long process, and that could be helpful to do with a therapist, with a good friend, to do that with someone else, so that you're processing it in a healthy way and not just spinning in your mind, which can be a tendency of mine and probably all of ours, right? Okay, so let's see. I just want to, so we've got, I think, about 2 or 3 minutes here. I just want to quickly give a few really practical ways to work with insomnia, so that here's what you do at 2 a.m. when you're awake. This is what you can do. Some of the things that I think can be really helpful are getting your mind off of what you're thinking about. So I've recently purchased a Kindle, and it's great because it has the soft light and I can read in the middle of the night and I don't wake up my husband. And so I think that reading can be a great way to just get your mind off of things. It kind of makes you tired a little bit. And so I recommend reading. And in fact, I think that reading is something that a lot of medical associations recommend for insomnia. I also recommend reading something that's not emotionally charged. You know, don't pick up the news. Don't read a ravenous love story. Don't read something that's stimulating. I love historical fiction or history, and so that's what I tend to pick up, something that's sort of dry, but I'm still interested in it. You know, something that's more textbooky. That would be my recommendation. The other thing that I think is really helpful is to practice self-soothing. So doing things that are soothing, that really soothe ourselves. So again, essential oils, the scent can be a very soothing scent. Holding something in your hand that's soft, like a soft blanket or even a stuffed animal, something that helps you to feel soothed, to feel calm. Really, what I feel a shift is when I can take a deep breath in the middle of the night. When I take a deep breath, I know, okay, I've shifted. And so sometimes for me, that's just soothing. One of actually my favorite practices is I picture myself in a soothing place. I think that's different for everybody. So it could be on a beach or a snowy mountain cabin or a cozy English cottage. And I sort of picture myself. I picture what it looks like, where I am, what I'm doing. Are there other people there? I create this very soothing environment in my mind. And again, that keeps my mind from winding itself up. The other thing is there's a lot of apps. And of course, I think everybody knows this, but just a quick reminder, all electronics should be out of the bedroom. The electronics, you know, your heart has its own electrical system. Your heart has its own electrical system. That's why we can jumpstart it with the QED. And so get all the electronics out of the bedroom. However, there's some great apps on the phone that I like one called Sleep Well. And this particular app actually it has hypnosis, a hypnotic beat in the background. You can barely tell it's there, but what it does is it gets your brain into the theta, I think it's the theta waves that you want to be in. I can't remember, don't hold me to that. But it puts your brain waves into that. And so I think, again, finding ways to get out of your head, bring your awareness into your body, getting up and doing some stretching. You can soak your feet in warm water. Okay, I just want to close with one more thing that I think is really neat. So Anthony William, he wrote the book Medical Medium, which again, I'm sort of holding my computer up here. Medical Medium. he talks about insomnia. And one of the things that he said was actually very reassuring for me. He said that even though you feel like you're awake, there's still a part of you that is asleep. And I try to remember that when I'm feeling that frustrated part of myself. And I think that that can be a helpful thing to remember, that there is part of your brain that is still relaxed and sleeping. And even just being in the supine position, relaxed, doing some deep breathing, you're still receiving benefit. And so considering that and keeping that quiet mind. So there we go. So thank you. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Holly. That was good stuff. All right. We'd love to take any questions from anyone. If anyone has a question for Holly. If not, I have a question for Holly. Holly, do you know off the top of your head, like I mentioned earlier, that there's particular times in the evening that are kind of related to the organs, right? So
yeah,
is there a 1 o'clock organ, a 2 o'clock organ, a 3 o'clock organ? Do you know?
Thanks for reminding me. I was gonna, because I was feeling like I was gonna be too short on time if I got into that detail. So quickly, so in Chinese medicine, we have the clock, the Chinese medicine clock. And essentially the flow of qi through all of the organs and meridian systems takes 28 minutes. And so basically every 2 hours, I'm skipping some stuff here. I apologize for the confusion, but every 2 hours, our qi kind of rests in particular organs and fortifies that organ, tonifies that organ. And so it goes through our day. So it's very interesting. So from 1 to 3 a.m. is the liver, and from 3 to 5 a.m. is the lungs. And so the interesting thing to me, symbolically, this, again, I could talk for an hour on what the liver does and the lung and wood and metal and all of this stuff. But essentially, this is the birth-death cycle. This is the birth-death cycle. The liver is the end. It's Scorpio. It's death. It is the things in our lives that are ready to leave. The lung, 3 to 5 a.m., is the time that the veil between this world and the next is the thinnest. It is the time for inspiration. So literally breath, inspiration. But it is also a time of connecting to that part of ourselves that is shifting, that is in transition. And, we as healers, we tend to kind of always be in transition. And so this time it's a tricky time. This is the time of transition. It's when we go from death into rebirth, the end of the full, complete end of the day into the new day. So thanks, Liz, for asking that question. And I think Liz Bigger, you're raising your hand?
I did. I don't know if this might be off topic, but what I see a lot in my clients is they like to tell me, "Oh, I get 5 hours and I'm fine." And then, they have illnesses, then the body starts breaking down in different places, and I cannot seem to get them to see any connection between that, because they say they feel fine. And I think it's because they're in the beta, they're in that adrenal overload. So is there any things that you can tell people, or that you have told people, that help them see that connection between sleep and health and wellness?
That's a great question. Well, what comes to mind when you say that is, there's actually a lot of mainstream media right now. You could even just Google like NBC News. I know NBC News has had several, in the last year or so, they've had several things on it, basically, where they're talking about that, you need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And these are the repercussions. Your metabolism doesn't work as well. Your circadian rhythm gets off. Maybe pointing them to things that are, seem very official, and that, that might be one way to work with it. I would also think, Liz, I know that you do energy work, and I would imagine that the more energy work that you're doing with them, the more you're connecting them to their bodies so that they do feel more. And so I would imagine that too would be really helpful.
It is. It really is. And it's just, I feel like they could get better benefit out of what I do if they were getting more sleep. But at the same time, but that's a good thing to do, to point them to something official. So
Yeah, right.
I think Lori has a question now.
Well, you're muted. You're muted, Lori.
There we go. You might want to tell your clients that the lack of sleep produces cortisol. And if any of you were to Google cortisol right now, literally Google cortisol death hormone, and you'll see that the more cortisol you have, the closer it brings you to death. And I have it up on my screen right now. Cortisol is known as the death hormone. It prepares our bodies to die, while cortisol, blah, blah, blah. Cortisol is boosted by coffee. Coffee is lack of sleep. The more caffeine you have, the more cortisol you produce, the closer to death you get. It ages your body. And then Claire, I was going to tell you, for your hot feet, in that warm water, put some peppermint oil with a little bit of a carrier. Peppermint has the ability to burn some people with direct contact, but if you have a little bit of a carrier oil in there, peppermint is very cooling. It's like when you put peppermint gum in your mouth, you know how you get that kind of, that's what it'll do to your feet.
I noticed that with peppermint oil too. When I put it on my feet in the summer, I'm like, whoa, I cooled off fast. All right, we just have a couple minutes here. So I want to let everybody know that Holly has an awesome offer to do a intuitive health reading with you, and I posted that in the chat. And we just want to give you an opportunity to work with Holly, because I'm telling you, she's amazing. She records your session with her, which is fascinating to go back and listen to. And I was just thinking about mine, Holly. It's been about 1.5 years, I think, and I'm ready to go listen to it again, because I know you said something to me in there that is like, I want to just go back and say, oh yeah, let's listen to that. So there's an offer in there. It's good to the end of October. So I highly recommend. I mean, she's going to give you so much information. It's awesome. So I wanted to throw that in there. And Holly, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say, but I thank you so much for being here today, because insomnia is a big problem. And if you feel acupuncture can help you, find a local acupuncturist. And if you're in Pismo Beach, California, you can go see Holly there.
No, I'm not licensed in California.
Oh,
no.
Whoops.
Only in Colorado, so
Holly
maybe I'll be back in Colorado soon.
Doing her intuitive
Go find your licensed acupuncturist.
Yeah. Well, we have another licensed acupuncturist on the call here today, Miss Johanna Alper. Johanna, did you want to chime in at all on insomnia, since you've been an acupuncturist for 30 years? I don't know if you have anything you'd like to throw in on the conversation. I'll unmute you. There you go. Not to put you on the spot.
Holly did a phenomenal job, and I want to thank her very much for this. And I don't really have anything that I want to add at this point.
Okay, that's fine.
Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you.